To take over the responsibility of giving us the keys to successfully innovating in clean tech, we have an amazing panel that will be introduced by our next moderator. He has 30 years experience in consulting and engineering, mostly dealing with renewable energy and environmental issues. He is the director of solar and biomass business at Typsa and professor at IE Business School. Typsa is a set of independent firms in the field of civil engineering, architecture, and environment. Please, let's welcome Carlos García Suarez and his panel. Carlos, and then we have again Patrick Möller. Go ahead, on stage. There you go. Thank you. And a round of applause as well from John Chamberlain. See, there's one missing. Yes, John Chamberlain is from Gas Natural Fenosa, we all know, and Patrick Möller, he's just been there. And
is the microphone on?
Yeah, it's working.
All right.
Do you need the?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We have an extra chair in case somebody comes up.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, we have a third speaker that should be coming anytime, we hope. This is a relatively short period of time, so let's go very quickly into the questions. But let me just give you a couple of ideas that maybe can serve as a basis for the rest of the discussion. You probably are aware that we are really on the onset of a real revolution as far as energy goes. And saying that means real revolution as far as economy goes. Some people have called it the third industrial revolution. And the revolution has many components. One of them is, we are coming close to a point where energy will be almost free. It's very easy to access everywhere in the planet. In the last competitive auctions that we have seen, the last one I think was in Abu Dhabi just 2 or 3 weeks ago, the price that won, this is for big solar farms, was less than $25 per megawatt hour. And I don't know if this number tells you a lot, but it's really about half the price that you will normally pay for a combined cycle generated energy. And this price is not an exception now. We are seeing prices in the range from 25 to, let's say, $35 megawatt hour in Chile, in Argentina, in Mexico, in Dubai, and the one in Abu Dhabi, and others that will come in. So the generation part is becoming very cheap. The energy sector needs other components. We have, of course, transmission, distribution, and marketing. We need to retail the energy. So we want to talk about how the revolution might happen in each of those branches and what are the challenges ahead. In my view, we still need to lower the prices if possible. And the biggest challenge here is how we make this happen everywhere in the world, not just in the developed countries, how we make this happen in Nigeria or in Madagascar, places where the grid is very weak, but Madagascar has 20 million people, and they only have about 300 megawatt installed. It's a fraction of what we have in Madrid for 20 million people. So these people desperately need electricity, needs energy, and we can provide that at a cost, but lots of things need to change. Okay, so that's kind of a basis for maybe starting the conversation. You already heard Patrick Möller in the previous chat, so I'm sure you probably covered some of the topic, but let me invite you to. You are in the ocean energy sector, which is kind of a niche when you compare to the big wind and solar developments across the world. Could you maybe, making sure you don't overlap too much to whatever you already said, could be the contribution for ocean along with wind and solar in this energy revolution? And do you also feel a pressure in terms of prices that I mentioned? Because the prices of all technologies are coming down because basically solar and wind are growing. So I'm sure this is also being felt in other technologies.
Definitely. And to comment on the first question about the role of wave power, as all the other sources also develop, wave power is very much, and so is tidal at the time, a niche part of this sector. It has a very big role, I think, to balancing the grids, to handle the intermittency. We see today when it's windy, both in Germany and Denmark, you have negative energy prices on the most windy days, and you're actually paying to get rid of the energy. And I think a source with a different timing and much closer also to a base load in the term that you are able to know 2 to 3 days in advance what's coming in is going to be very beneficial for that. The price pressure, definitely. I mean, this and any other energy technology doesn't have a role in the mainstream market until you are on that level of very competitive numbers that you mentioned.
What would be a target price for your technology in terms of megawatt hour for an appropriate place? Of course, it would depend on the places as any other thing, but what could be a target price for you?
I mean, the early days when we're doing, if you say pilot farms, we are targeting to get competitive with the offshore wind, which is starting at 150 megawatt hour, euros per megawatt hour, sorry. And then we're seeing quite quickly with the learning rates and the volume increases that we will be able to get down certainly below 100 and down towards the 80, 75, 70, and with the quality of the energy as well, being predictable and stable, I think there will be a role for at those price levels.
Okay, so that's a good, number really, and he mentioned intermittency is a big issue now. Question, we have more solar, more wind is great, but the fact you only have this energy when there's wind or there's solar, so how do you manage the drops of production or simply, when there's no resource around? And, obviously, tides probably behave in a very different way and you can foresee them quite precisely, so it's a good, maybe, idea to keep in mind. Let me ask my other panelists here. John, he's working for Fenosa. It's a big utility company. It's one of the traditional actors in Spain. In fact, it's also now has been merged a few years ago with Gas Natural, which is a gas company. So he, in a way, is part of the old school kind of guys in the sense that they've been running the show for decades. And they are facing a challenge because, all of a sudden you have new developers producing projects in different technologies all over the world. And they have to change. They have to adapt to this reality on the generation side, but also maybe on the marketing side and so forth. So a question we all have is, what is going to be the utility sector in the future? Is it still going to be utility sector, or are they going to disappear because they were too slow in accepting the change? This is something that has been criticized. Utilities has been reluctant somehow to embrace new technologies, and if they don't do, they might run the risk of disappearing. But maybe Fenosa is taking the challenge, and hopefully will survive. So what is your view in the future of the utility sector?
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, if you're English, as we're past 12. Quite a few questions in that speech, Carlos, and I think I'm going to start from a bit of a philosophy. We represent the energy utility sector, and our job is simply to supply energy reliably, green, to the customer when he so wishes. And we have to do it competitively. Now, we're in a sector that is about to, or is already ongoing, a major shift, a major paradigm change in the way we do business. And it's a change that every utility is now facing, taking into account our role to supply energy. We are under the climate pressures. So when we look at how we adapt our country, I work in the R&D department, we have to look at the full picture. So there is a significant movement to more sustainable, renewable energy. And we are promoting renewable energies. But renewable energy can only get into the system when it is cost comparative and it is reliable. So there has to be development stages there, which we are happy to partnership. We as a company, we are actually now Gas Natural Fenosa, so not Union Fenosa.
Right.
We're a gas utility as well. We're one of the biggest operating around the world. So we also see a significant interest for ourselves to promote renewable gas, because we believe that the gas sector still has a lot to offer the future of society to comply with COP, but into a renewable sector. Because at the end of the day, what is better? To burn biomass in the town emitting particles or NOx, or to burn biomethane and not have particles or NOx emissions in the city centre? So we have to look at the context. And then we go to the other side, is that energy is going to be every day more critical. Because we hear the movement in electrical vehicles, the movement in artificial intelligence. Those sectors will be heavily intensive in electrical energy. And we as a company will have to supply that in this paradigm shift in the things of mobility. We also want to put natural gas into the transport sector. And then we come to the other thing that's critical, end-use efficiency. So we're looking at many things, but we go quite in a progressive manner, because at the end of the day, we still have to supply the energy. We can't go all out and have 100% renewable energy today and cut everybody off for 2 hours a day. That is just not realistic. But we will work with solutions, battery solutions, cleaner generation, reducing emissions to comply with COP21. And we're very much a company that's opening to partnerships to take technologies forward when we believe they will become cost competitive. We bring quite a lot of experience, as many of the other utilities of the sector, and we know what the technologies need to achieve. So it's not, you can't just have this paradigm shift from one day to night and change everything. We're a sector that has to deliver. And we have to deliver in an environmental way and help people take their technologies forward, bring it into our experience.
And on the innovation aspect that you mentioned, this is an innovation forum pretty much. So how do you address that aspect? I mean, I understand it's not so much you developing technologies in-house, but it's more working with people. And do you become as an investor in them? How do you help them? And is it all across the value-added chain? Or can you tell us about how you manage that?
I think, generally speaking, different utilities are taking different roles in this.
Okay.
A utility, at the end of the day, is a user of technology. And we want to find the best technology. So we're not necessarily, our core business is not to develop technology. Our core business is to integrate that technology into a platform that can supply our clients in the best form. We participate in many projects, internally funded, European funded, to develop and demonstrate new technologies. In our particular case, Gas Natural has opted, because we're a utility, we're a big company, we're a fairly conservative company. So when we've looked at investment startups, we became full members of Kick Energy. On the first day they were created, we're very active in Kick Energy, in the Barcelona office, the renewable energies. And we've used that vehicle very much as if there's investment needed. And we've used that to analyze technologies. But as a message to the startups, there are many, many good ideas out there. But I've looked in the last year at hundreds of good new proposals. But we reject the most of them because we have a clear vision where we want to go. And so you can't be depressed by the fact there will be rejection there. Not all ideas at this moment can go into the business. And this is where, as a partner, we like to work with people, identify the niches in the openings, and see if we can get to a cost-competitive solution.
Okay, let me connect this aspect maybe with Patrick's own experience. You're the chief executive officer of your company. I presume you were the founder as well. So you probably have gone through different steps, looking for money from friends, then looking for all the more massive amounts of money. How you found, is the capital venture industry or other financial actors, are they prone, are they open really to invest in new technologies? What can you tell us about your experience in that regard?
Yeah, I would start by saying that in FCorPower, we have been taking a quite careful approach when it comes to funding. I have the experience of running another technology startup before this one, where we were a quite small team. This was in the semiconductor industry, so completely different, but still complex, long technology development cycles, demonstration cycles, and so on. And there we were a small team of 4 people, and we got a huge amount of hype. We raised like 14 million euros in our first A round and 4 people in this small of a prototype, and it developed over the years. And I think I learned, and it was decent success in that one, but in the end, when the Lehman Brothers thing came in 2008 and so on, all the VCs who just been saying give more and more gas, there's no stop, faster, faster, all by a sudden the market can collapse so quickly. Yeah. And these type of projects are long-term projects. You need funding arrangements which are suitable for this type of long-term development. So in FCorPower, we've taken a very careful approach in working in the beginning primarily with public funds, and then we were successful with Kick Energy, as you mentioned. We have about a third of our backing today from Kick Energy, which is a mix of money from the power companies and some EU funding with it. And our most recent funding now is from Wave Energy Scotland, which is actually public procurement. Okay. So it's the Scottish state who buy services from startups. And in that sense, we've been able to get a total funding package together. Our current stage 3 demonstration is funded with about 6.5 million euros. And we still haven't involved any VCs. Okay. We just secured another 4 million now through Horizon 2020 grant. We will, when we go to the full-scale pilot in the next year, probably involve some of the first fully commercial venture capitalists into the company. But for us, it has been critical to take it through the first 3 stages of demonstration, really get the proof and perhaps even more importantly, know the direction we're on, know that these are the remaining steps to the market. Because I don't think an early stage clean tech development startup in generation like this is suitable for VC from day one. Yeah. But the mix of first taking it quite far with a combination of public funding, customer funding, and project funding can be a good one, and then shift over to have more and more mix of VC money.
And the vision you have about your company, is that of a technology developer, or you also plan to get to be a project developer and develop the project? Because that needs a different approach in reality, risk-wise, for example, and geographically wise.
Yes, definitely. And today we are very focused on being a technology developer, and we want to work with project developers that have their expertise in consenting, all the environmental studies, how you get, how do you find the best sites, and how do you develop that? And there's quite a few of them around, as we know, in solar and wind. There's more and more of them looking in the ocean energy sector as well.
Okay. John, because of some of the talk that happened here before, also my introduction here, I think pretty much the audience probably is aware that the generation segment of the business is really happening already, the revolution. In a matter of a few years, prices and capacity installed have changed dramatically. But the other segments of particularly the electricity business, I know you are also in gas, and we'll talk about gas later, but the other segment, that is the transmission, the distribution, and even the retail management, when you deal with your customers, what are the things that you think need to change in the future in your sector?
I think
some people say, for example, I hear Jeremy Rifkin saying, utility companies should become just an information provider. Someone will generate and someone will demand, you only manage the information to a certain extent. You think that makes any sense for you?
I don't. Okay. And I don't like to argue with a person who's written a lot of books, but we're an energy supplier. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that is first and foremost, and we're a sector that's split into what I call commercial, regulated, and commercial activities. The distribution sector, or the transport and distribution of electricity, in this case, is a sector that has shown to be very robust, because when we started on this growth of renewable energy, quite a few years back, people said, when you cannot supply reliable power to the people with more than 20% renewable energy entering into the system. That has been shown to be wrong. We've now got the technology, the monitorization in the distribution, and we can in the countries are now around 50% or more renewable energy coming into the sector. Renewable energy is a green source of energy, and we have to adapt to it, but it's not as easy to handle for a distribution company as baseload nuclear, coal, or gas electricity, because it's not fully predictable. So we have to manage that. And the distribution grid will have to adapt. It'll have to be far more automation, far more monitoring and sensoring, so it can still do its function to deliver electricity to the people. So that is a sector which is transforming. We're seeing it. We saw it a few years ago, where now we're getting the smart meters installed. We're handling the variable generation. As a company, as ourselves, we're very much into large-scale storage projects. We've got one up in Alcalá de Henares, a battery, to see how that can help us maintain that support. And that's a regularized business. And I don't see at the moment, even though there will be much more local generation, distributed generation, there will still be the backbone of the grid and the electricity supply that can guarantee 100%, I'm going to say 100, but 99.99% of the time, electrical energy. So that grid has to become, we will talk about smart grids, it's going to have to become increasingly more intelligent. The commercial part of the business, which we sell to clients, is now an open business. The distribution and the commercial parts are completely separated, and there are, I think the other day in Spain alone, there's 230 odd 230 companies that have got their license to sell electricity to the people to anybody in the household. We have to sell as a company, we have to transform from selling just electricity to selling a service. And how this will change in the future is a lot of where we're going out to the prediction. What added value products do we have to supply to the customer that enables him to have a smart home that is useful to the customer and the customer is prepared to use? We see a lot of products that I can shut my garage door, I can do this, but they've not had a high acceptance rate. So I see us moving more from just simply an energy supplier to a service provider, where you're going to look at security, you're going to look at cameras, you're going to look at a whole facet of products. And that's going to open up a whole facet of other competitors. Yeah. Now, the comment that Rifkin made is actually quite an interesting comment. He said, we're nothing more than a data manager. It is true that a utility handles an awful lot of data, has a considerable database about our clients. So that is true. We do handle that, but it's not really the key to the game. The key to this game is selling, I think, going from strictly an electricity gas supplier to a service supplier or a comfort supplier, however you want to integrate it. Because I see a market in that we will sell a comfort. We will sell a product that enables you to charge your car, you can manage your two-way transfer if that goes, but it's going to be a service. So maybe we'll go from a utility more to a service provider, and then we will have to compete against other players, which could be Samsung, Google, Apple. It's going to be a whole new market.
Right. That's an interesting comment. Thank you for that. We'll get back to the gas part of your business, but let me have another question for Patrick. You mentioned one of the advantages of the ocean energy is more dispatchable. Sometimes we call it that way. You can predict, and thereby you can integrate it in an easier way in the grids, which is something which is especially important in weak grids, like the ones I've mentioned. I'm doing projects in Africa now, and it's the real limiting factor for the project is the grid. It's not the size or it's not the sun, or it's really the grid is the limiting factor. So is your technology something you think it can be deployed pretty much across the world, or are there very specific conditions that need to exist to be, cost competitive? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it has different stages of the rollout. In the beginning, of course, we're going to be most cost effective where the resource is the most suitable, and of course also where you have an electricity price which is more attractive to it right now. And it's in the tempered zones, meaning the northern and the southern hemisphere, not exactly around the equator, but north of it and the south of it, you get the best wave resource generally. And typically it is the west coasts of Europe, the west coast of the US, it's the west coast of South America, so Chile, and it's also the west coast of Africa, and then definitely Australia, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, you have very nice wave conditions. Since you have dominating westerly winds in the temperate zones, you have the fetch from the west, and because of that, the west coasts are always the better place. Then otherwise, it depends on a little bit the seabed conditions, the depth, how far from shore you need to go. Sweet spot depth is somewhere between 50 to 100 meters, typically meaning a kilometer or a few kilometers out from the coast. So not too far to pull cables and so on. And if you count those areas, there's a huge area which is available for commercial harvesting. But of course, you're going to start in the most attractive parts to begin. In Europe right now, I would say it's the UK with Scotland, Ireland is our key focus. We're also working in Portugal. Both places have a high degree of carbon-based electricity generation at the moment that needs to be replaced, or there's a big need for that. And we see that opportunity, and we also see a favorable political support, at least up until this point in the UK. We'll see about that.
Hopefully you should get more support, as they need to comply with the Paris Agreement. That should trigger more of the support, not less, hopefully. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of the gas. Electricity is, the world is becoming more electrical, this is clear, but I mean, there's obviously going to be a segment of for fossil fuels, Because basically the beauty of fossil fuel is highly concentrated energy that can be deployed at will. I mean, you are in the middle of the desert, you need a car to move around, and you have the energy there in your tank. So specifically about gas, you mentioned biomethane as something that you probably want to incorporate. I don't know if you are doing already that. In Germany, biomethane is pretty, it's well established, not only Germany, other European countries, it's well established technology for local use, but also you can clean it to the point you can integrate it into the grids, into the natural gas grids. Is this something you foresee? And what are the innovations there? Because I'm not so much of an expert there, but my impression is there hasn't been much innovation in the biomethane area in the last, I don't know, let me say 20 years, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, okay?
I think there has been innovation. I think innovation is quite a constant thing.
Mm.
I think first and foremost, Gas Natural, Fenosa, for its first two names, we are a gas company. We're a natural gas company, and natural gas is very much a fuel that's considered the bridging technology to move away from coal, oil. It's a cleaner form of a fuel to reduce emissions, CO2 emissions, but at the end of the day, it remains a fossil fuel. So as a company, looking at the future and the fact that there's a very extended gas network that you can channel energy into the houses, we are looking at ways of greening gas and moving gas to much more to a sustainable fuel. And as you correctly say, biomethane is a fuel that you can inject into the gas grid and you can use it and move it around, and it's CO2, I wouldn't say CO2 neutral, it's a green fuel. You're quite right, Carlos, in saying there's been considerable projects done in Germany, some done in France, the UK, there's projects. But they've been projects, what I'm going to call like early stage renewable energy projects. They've been done with a heavy subsidy because it has a cost. Now, we internally, we haven't put a big plant into Spain. We have been working, I actually manage around, I manage or have managed around 18 projects on biomethane and gas renewable, where we've been working with the universities, looking at different sources of biogas to see if we can bring the costs down. So we've not gone to the full-scale plant because in our markets there hasn't been a subsidy there. So we've gone very much to looking at how we can reduce the costs, how we can improve the raw material, which is biogas. Well, you can produce biomethane by various routes. You can either produce biogas from digesters, anaerobic digesters. There was a startup company here saying they're putting these nanoparticles, and that biogas is a mixture of methane and CO2, and you separate them. Or you add hydrogen to the CO2 to form methane. Or you can do it the other way, is you can gasify biomass to form a synthetic gas, which you then go through a Fischer-Tropsch and form natural gas. So but these concept projects, we are very much working with quite a few universities, technology centers, looking at new ways of bringing down the costs of separation. And to us, that's key. Where we see a huge role for natural gas is not just in the energy sector, it's also in the transport sector. Because we accept that the domestic vehicles is going to be movement to electric cars, but the big heavy lorries, the ships, where we have a product now, need a cleaner fuel. Right. And natural gas is that cleaner fuel, is the alternative fuel that's available, and you can bring down emissions. So we're very heavily involved in that, and if we can make that more biomethane, we can do it. But when you talk about biocrops, bioenergy, you always have to take into consideration what your source is. We can't displace food crops. So we're looking at very much waste treatment plants that produce biogas. So you have to look at the whole picture and the whole question of the cyclic economy and these things. But biomethane, I think, is, well, the company has said on many things, you go to our stand, it's actually written there, will be a key line for natural gas in the near future.
Okay, but and this is a good point you mentioned. I mean, you are somehow limited by the basic resource there, the organic matter that will eventually convert into methane. And if you focus in waste and other sources that are not crops, essentially, will that produce enough of a volume for a company like you, which is a big company? It's not a domestic thing that you do it for your home. It's a big business. So is that size-wise significant?
These are quite complex calculations.
Yeah.
I think we put as a long-time goal, but it is a goal. We believe, and Spain is not the best biomass country in Europe, but there's considerable biomass to the north, that we could supply sufficient biomethane, in theory, and I'm going to say in theory, because it has to compete with other uses, that could virtually cover our domestic consumption. So it could cover the city centre consumption. So that's a long-term goal. You know, please take that as a goal. It's not a fact. It's a goal, and it's our belief at the moment.
Okay. Okay, Patrick, maybe the last question is going to be for you in view of the time we have left. In, let's say, 20 years' time, not to put it too far away, what do you think will be the installed capacity of ocean technology? Not only your company, you can say the sector. What kind of size are we talking about? Is it going to be really relevant?
I definitely think so. I mean, the total capacity or the resources somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 terawatt hours. So I think in 2030, 35, we're looking to see around a gigawatt installed would be a good target for this sector. And I mean, the need is certainly there. There's no doubt about it. The question is just how quick will technology developers get there and be as reliable and as cost-effective as you're mentioning that is required. Yeah. I think it's very much a technology play in this sector right now.
Well, thank you very much to the two of you. I think we are right on time, so I think nobody can complain about that. Thank you very much to the audience. We are welcome for chatting outside if you need that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos, John, and Patrick. Thank you very much.